Welcome to the Rethink Youth Conference. My name's Kivana, and this is my partner, Alasia, and we are students from De La Salle, and our session topic is strengthening student-teacher connections. We don't really get a lot of chances like this to get our student voices out, to talk to administrators and school superintendents. And we're so happy to be here because of Rethink Youth.
Everyone's heard of student voice, right? The definition of student voice is putting your voice out there and actually seeing a change. What I feel the definition of student voice is seeing a change in a timely manner. What's the point of speaking up if you're not going to see a change? And I feel like my school's definition of student voice is you put your voice out there, they want to hear you, but they don't hear you soon enough. And I feel if we elevate the student voice, then students will be more prone and more active in school. Because in today's society, students, I've seen it myself, and I'm guilty of it. I do not want to go to school because I don't see some of the things that I want to see. Like if I voice my opinion, I feel like I should be heard sooner than 5 years from now.
So after we've heard what student voices, what it has to do with student-teacher connections, the teachers are going to have to hear from us because instead of going to classes and being lectured all day and not having a say in how certain things are coming across, it's not always going to be a student wanting to come to class. They're going to be less responsive if they do show up. My team and I, we've been reading articles and discussing them in Zoom calls for the past few couple weeks. We have now come up with a presentation and a project brief, and we'd love for you guys to stay so we can share it with you. In our presentation, we will be sharing some of the history of how class has gone on before, some of the challenges that we're currently facing, and how we're gonna fix it.
Welcome to the D. Salle Rethink Youth Conference session. Today we are going to be talking about how teachers and students can build stronger relationships and connections. Here are the students who worked on this project. Alasia was on the steering committee and Mr. Faulkner was the session coordinator. I am Takaya, and with me I have Alasia, Kavana, and Zanique. I started D. Salle my 10th grade year. I was new to everyone, but the staff were very supportive and helpful. They always made sure the students were doing good and staying on task, and always planning activities to keep us, the students, entertained.
Like we said before, we are here to discuss how we can strengthen students and teachers' connections by why. But why is that important? A review of 46 educational research studies found that a strong teacher and student relationships were associated in both short and long term with improvements on practically every measure school care about higher student academic engagement, attendance, grades, fewer disruptive behaviors and suspensions, and lower school dropout rates. Clearly, students and teachers' connections play an important role in education. Yet, right now, because of COVID-19 and Zoom classes, teachers and students have never felt less connected. Virtual learning can be extremely overwhelming to some students, and a lack of normalcy can have a large impact on students' mental health. Very few school activities are the same. Even Even schools that are in person are still physically distant, and that alone makes it significantly hard for students and teachers to connect in between classes. Instead of talking with students and asking how they are doing, teachers are asking blank screens with students who have already logged off or checked out. Schools that have implemented mental health supports have seen a decrease in mental health issues and suicides from schools. Schools that have increased emphasis on testing and performance can make their students incredibly stressed. Many schools focus solely on content and leave out the mental health and other social emotional learning so they can prepare students for standardizing. Over Zoom, it is also really difficult for teachers to know exactly where their students are with their material. This disconnect can lead to students being left behind and being more confused than in person. Because of the gap that exists between screens and students are not always comfortable speaking up and asking for help, especially if their peers understand. Students can feel soiled and cut off from their teachers and friends. We want to look at what teachers and students can do during this incredibly stressful time to come together and build stronger connections so that we can make the lives of both teachers and students easier and greatly increase educational outcomes for students. We're going to cover some key terms that we will be using throughout this presentation. We have already introduced a concept of teachers and students connection. We see those as the relationships between students and teachers as well as how well they know and trust each other. Okay, here's a little bit about a teacher that I had. Her name was Miss Johnson. She was a lady from the urban area who wanted to help all of the kids that she had. She wanted to put us in the right state of mind, and she wanted us to put us on the right track for when we got older for us to do the right things. Like she taught us life lessons and she taught us school lessons. She taught us to not give up even if people are like putting you down or just giving up on you. Just always keep going and do what you believe in. We'll also be discussing mental illnesses, which is a health condition that involves changes in emotions, thinking, or behavior. Common mental illness presents in students are depression and often anxiety. Oftentimes, these can go undiagnosed for a long time, as the school does not have the resources to educate students or support those who are struggling. Oftentimes, there are only a few counselors and 100 students, meaning that the students can fall through the cracks and not be properly supported. While not a mental illness, stress can have a negative side effect for students. Stress is a state of mental or emotional strain resulting from adverse conditions. Students experience stress in school when they feel overwhelmed and not supported. The more school focuses on testing, and performances, the more stressed students become. Okay, so here's a background story on me. When we used to have like big tests, they used to like press us to like study, make sure you do this. They used to give us a lot of homework to go over it and stuff. But I feel like when it came to the test, it wouldn't even be like the same stuff that we learned. So sometimes that stresses us out even more because it's like I'm gonna get a bad grade on this because I don't even remember this. Like this not even what I remember studying. One of our solutions calls for a holistic learning. Holistic learning goes beyond just the content that is taught in most classes. Ms. Johnson is a great example of holistic learning she is because she really tried to teach us about life and not just the content of her ELA. Holistic learning can help prepare students to succeed after high school and help them learn more about the world than just book knowledge.
During our research, these are some of the questions we found. What does it mean for teachers to know their students? Why has the focus of education shifted? What do we as students want education to look like? In history, focus has shifted more towards testing performance and not holistic learning. The relevance of our topic is right now during online learning. It's the hardest time to create connections between teachers and students. Our challenges are with Zoom fatigue, work, school, life, all in this balance, and mental health support lacking. Our solution is to have time built in with students, professional developments for teachers on mental health support. First, we're going to dive into a brief history of education. Traditionally, education is slow to catch up to changes in the world, and changes are happening faster than ever. Because of COVID-19, many schools are completely remote, and even the ones that are in person have to change drastically to keep up with safety procedures and distancing. Other large change in education was the passing of the No Child Left Behind bill
No Child Left Behind tied federal funding to standardized testing results. The emphasis on standardized testing changed classroom dynamics greatly. Schools place an emphasis on tested subjects while taking funding and resources away from the arts and real world classes like shop class and home economics. Schools packed every second of class time with content and started to forget about that social and emotional learning, and building strong connections between students and teachers were also important.
Students like myself are struggling right now. No one is motivated enough right now to wake up and get on a computer. Yesterday morning, for the first hour, I actually overslept. Activities at the school really isn't the same. Everything, including graduation and sports, have completely changed. So it makes it harder to want to do the day-to-day school stuff. Teachers have to deal with us all day, and when we don't really know each other, it leads to more students misbehaving or not treating them well. Teachers probably have a harder time knowing where students are while doing work and what their understanding is. Sometimes students don't answer questions or may walk away from the computer. They even stop coming to class because the teachers do not have a strong connection with them and the students know that they can get away with it. Sometimes your teacher can support you and motivate you more than your families. Some people connect with their teachers and see them as family. We are with teachers for a large amount of our time. When we get to know each other, there can be a really strong connection. These connections make it easier for students to be motivated at school, which eases stress on family during this difficult time. The more connected your school is, the more stuff that you can get done. When you dislike your teachers, it can stop other students from learning. During the middle of class, if students are arguing with the teachers, then little productive learning is going on. But when students enjoy a teacher, even when the subject is dry, they are less disruptive. Student teacher connections can have a positive impact on graduation rates, leading to more qualified workers in the community. Also, when students are less disruptive and enjoy their teachers, often more real world learning will occur. This helps create a more educated workforce that is ready to handle new jobs and makes the transition out of high school less stressful.
The first challenge that students face when connecting with teachers is that over time, Zoom and other video call services can cause fatigue and stress, causing students to disengage with the material. This means that students do not like coming to class, and lessons are often one sided, and teachers have to force minimal engagement from their students. So we decided that we need to find these alternative ways for teachers and students to connect. The second challenges that we faced was that students are juggling online classes while also sometimes having to work and help support their family. Some students are also having to babysit or watch their little siblings while their class is going on. We found that many students work, and sometimes that can conflict with scheduled Zoom classes. To help with this, we talked about consistent and communicated due dates so students can plan out when they will have to do work, as well as recordings of Zoom classes so that students can watch them. The last challenge that we see students facing is the lack of mental health support in schools. While remote, this is harder for students to meet up with counselors and those who have small private conversations with their teachers about what's going on in their lives. There's also a lack of mental health curriculum in most schools. Students who are not engaged are not necessarily bad or uncaring, but it might just be having a rough time or having other responsibilities. Without strong connections, teachers will not see the subtle changes in students' behavior that could indicate that they need more support.
After discussing the challenges that we face connecting with teachers, we started to discuss what could be done to solve them. First, let's talk about the first challenge, Zoom fatigue. When you're on a Zoom call all day, you often get more tired than a normal day, and day after day of Zoom calls can be quickly exhausting.
Most students have been doing Zoom classes for almost a year now, since they went remote last March. Sitting and looking at a Zoom screen is really hard. So we suggest that teachers make lessons less about lecture and more interactive, lots of group work. Making some of the lessons shorter recordings that students can watch on their own time. We are also suggesting that teachers build time into their Zoom lessons to actually learn more and connect about their students. This can be as simple as a daily question or a check-in that allows students to be themselves during class instead of just passively watching. This can continue and can even continue when we're back in person. The second challenge that we faced was balancing schoolwork and family. Some students during this time have had to take up jobs to help support their families or save for life after high school. Job hours during the pandemic can be difficult to get, and some students are forced to work during the school day while their classes are going on. We are suggesting that teachers can record their lessons and post them, as well as find multiple ways and times to support those students who are also working. This can include flexible deadlines, alternatives for group work, and even separate tutoring hours. Our last challenge was our biggest, and that was the support that teachers and schools are giving their students. Teachers may not always be the most well trained when it comes to providing mental health support. Therefore, we want to encourage more schools to offer high quality professional development on how to support students as well as the warning signs of mental illness and stress. We are suggesting that there are social emotional learning lessons during advisory or even built into the normal core content. This gives students a baseline for learning the language and warning signs of different mental illnesses. While we came up with solutions, we also wanted to make sure that those solutions had a clear path forward. We want to encourage teachers to build time into their lesson plans to get to know their students more. If students are interested in getting to know one another and their teachers better, it is really hard for teachers to refuse. Students just need to advocate for themselves what they will need, even though it might seem difficult or scary. We can also encourage students to petition for more flexible work for those who may have to miss class for jobs or take care of younger siblings. When students come together as one, teachers will listen. If students start an honest dialogue with their teachers about why they cannot be in class and encourage them in the school to be more flexible, we may see more changes in student support that can start to build different types of connections than we may have seen this in a normal year. Schools are also saving money on things like building security and busing. These funds could be put to paying for a district-wide high-quality free mental health curriculum that could be taught in either a core class or advisory. By reallocating these funds towards something that directly helps the students during this time, school districts can show that they understand the difficult nature of remote learning, are finally responding to something students have been asking for. Schools and districts can also use these funds to build spaces for students to learn how to support other students. Thank you guys for being here today. And it was so important to me because I feel like we've been suppressed and silenced long enough, and it's time to see a change. And I just wanted to leave you guys here with a quote to think about. Holistic educators do more than prepare students for the workplace, they prepare students to make a better world. Thank you.
Before we started this project, um, I don't even know how to put this into words. Whenever we were in school. This is my first year at De La Salle. So my old school that I went to, me and my teachers really never had a connection because every time a student tried to voice their opinion, it was being disrespectful in their eyes. So most students just went on about their day, either put their head down and went to sleep during class or just never did their work because the teachers never paid attention to how we felt. So after we got into this project, my vision on student voice and teacher connection has expanded so much because now I feel like I can actually speak up and be heard.
What I have learned from reading the articles is that without a strong student and teacher connection, or without one at all, it's always seeming to feel one sided. Either one teacher is like working against you, or through your eyes that's what you're seeing and that's what you're feeling. You guys could both be having issues, but because you guys don't have a strong relationship, neither of you guys are being very understanding of each other. So through what we've researched, I have realized that if I'm not having a strong connection, there's a chance that I'm not being completely understanding and it's not really helpful. I've had strong connections with my teachers, and for me to have strong connections for all the years I've been going to school, it always helped me in my grade if I have a connection.
The impact I wanted to have on our education is I want students to be able to feel like they can speak up and be heard. And I just don't want them to feel like they're in the shadows anymore because they're not. This this rethink program is for students to be able to feel like they can voice their opinion. Like I went to Raytown and we had special needs students there. And I feel like I'm not going to say they were mistreated, but I don't feel like they were getting the help they needed. So whenever I feel like it was something that they needed, I would ask them. Because I feel like they shouldn't be treated any different than us. You should talk to them like they're people and not like they're mentally challenged because that's the only way you can build up their, let's say, immunity to understand what we're talking about. I'm telling you all of this because I want to see you make a change as well. It's not going to work with just one person standing alone. We have to be united as a whole and come together and voice our opinion because one of us is not loud enough alone. But if we come together and we all speak as one, then I feel like we'll be heard a lot soon.
Teachers, I want you to take what information you've learned from here. Talk to your students, ask about their day, what's going on outside of school, outside of the classroom.
Thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to listen and engage in our presentation. I know you guys might have further questions about our discussion today. We'll be here for a live Q&A and we would love to answer your questions.